everybody. Welcome. My name is Ophira Eisenberg. You might know me as the host of NPR's Ask Me Another. It's my pleasure to be here at 51 Fest. And it is my pleasure to have a bit of a chat with the inspiration and the woman whose story this is all about, the real Brittany. Brittany O'Neill, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
I gotta say, this is a great day to go to the movies, and I've watched this a couple times because I had the advantage of watching it beforehand. Last scene, I get teary-eyed, third time through, teary-eyed.
Every time.
Every time. But this is your story, and I want to find out all how close it is and how far it is and what your involvement is. But when you watch this depiction of your life, I mean, how does that feel?
Yeah, it's definitely strange and surreal and exciting and extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which I think is it's at this day and age when we're sort of always showing the most idealized version of ourselves via social media and whatever.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to be vulnerable and show a portrayal of a very flawed and normal human, I guess.
Yes, and when you're watching a great portrayal by Jillian Bell, I don't know how close it is, but she's a fantastic actress, and this is, so well done, right? So you're watching someone totally different, obviously, doing this, but it still touches you like it's...
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, I connect with the story a great deal.
Yeah, so it's very close.
The emotional journey is dead on. I mean, there are a lot of details. Paul created a story end to end, and it had to, be a nice, full experience for a movie. So there's a lot of scenes, characters, discussions, situations that are not accurate to real life. But the emotional journey and the, wanting more for yourself and trying for more and failing a lot, but still trying is definitely dead on. And Jillian, we didn't meet until towards the end of filming because it wasn't important that she is like specific to me in her portrayal. It just had to be, her own version of the character through Paul's script. But I thought that she was incredible and really captured what I went through.
Yeah. And I just want to let everyone know, we're going to talk, and there will be a chance at the end to ask questions from the audience. But when you say Paul, let's just be clear. Paul Downs... Calazio.
Yeah.
So that, friend of yours?
Yes. We've known each other since like 2003 or 4. We went to undergrad together.
Here in New York?
Yep, and NYU.
Okay.
And we were close friends.
That checks out with the movie.
Doesn't it? And we, at one point, ended up becoming roommates. And so it was during that time that I decided to make this big life change. He was a huge part. At the time, I think we were both working from home, so we had a lot of very deep, exploratory, self-reflective discussions a lot, because I was at a point where I just felt like I wanted more for myself. And so he was... a really big part of me making the decision to make the change, learning the steps that I should take to make changes, and he was my outlet for a lot of what I was going through as I, made various changes in my life. And it wasn't until, I was actually still in the process of training for the marathon and doing a lot when he told me that he was working on a script about it, and this was still 8 years ago now.
Okay.
So it was, and we were still living together at that time, and he was like, I just want to let you know I'm writing a movie about you, and I was like, oh my God. He was like, it's called Brittany Runs a Marathon, and when you run a marathon, for your first marathon, you're 100% not supposed to have a time goal, but I did because I and when he told me he was writing the movie, I was like, what's her time? And he was like, she doesn't run it. It's about distance traveled, and it's the journey, not the thing. And
yeah.
And because she gets injured, and at the time we didn't know that what I thought was just a little small ankle tweak in my last half marathon turned out being an injury that kept me out of the marathon for 2 years.
For 2 years?
Yeah. So it sort of was like my life mirroring the movie, mirroring my life, and they kept sort of feeding into one another.
So just to be clear, Paul wrote fictionally that the character of Brittany was going to have an injury.
Yes.
And then you ended up with an injury.
Yes. Yes.
That's terrifying.
It is. I know.
So the beginning scene of this movie in your life would have been 10 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. 2011. So
Okay.
yeah, 8 or 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're at NYU, and you and Paul, what are you studying?
I was studying theater directing and design, and then I ended up moving. Now I work in human rights at the International Rescue Committee, resettling refugees. But at the time, I thought, great. So when we were living together, we had actually been out of school for a while, and I think I had already decided not to work in theater and was like working for a transportation management tech startup. I went through a lot to discover my path, as we all do. We had met, I think, like 6 or 7 years prior at NYU together.
Yeah, and in this story, the catalyst for the character of Brittany finally deciding that she needs to make a change is actually going to see a physician who basically serves her up the hard truth. Is that? No,
that was like because there needed to be like
something to go fast.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Something that's like, but it really was just a lot of my dissatisfaction with myself. I wanted to like myself more, and I was trying to learn how to. For me, the best way to do that was outside in, to like change outside and obviously, as you see, it leads to like a lot of learning about yourself, challenging yourself, discovering that it's not actually about your body. Maybe for some people it is, but for me, it wasn't, and it's still something that's like constantly. I'm always sort of riding both sides of that. Coin.
I think we all have done this with challenges where we're trying to, find self-worth. Were there a lot of incidents where you were making progress and pushing people away?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, and honestly, like, I didn't really fully realize that until, like, reading versions of the script that he would show me. And I still, like, to this day, I'm like, every time I see this movie, I learn something new about myself. Thanks, Paul. Great. I recommend it. It's better than therapy. Have someone write a movie about you. Like, got you a lot farther.
Okay, so this time watching it, how many times have you watched it?
It's like 6 or 7 now.
Okay, 6 or 7. Wow. Okay, and this time, what did you have any like? Oh yeah, that's my learning moment.
This time I was just I have like some friends seeing it, so I just was seeing it through everyone's eyes and being terrified. But actually, I'll say
how enjoyable for you.
The biggest, honestly, when we premiered it at Sundance, that was the biggest learning moment for me, like yet, which was before that. A movie coming out was like, it can die at any time. You never know. Are people ever going to actually see it? So it wasn't real to me. And then when we were doing a Sundance premiere, I was like, oh, I have to look like an after photo. And it really sort of like set in motion a lot of stuff again. And then like I was, making jokes with my friends like, oh, I can't eat. I got Sundance in 2 weeks. And then I like sat in a theater with 1,200 people and watched a movie about a girl that obsesses over weight and like realizes it's the wrong thing that she's focusing on. And I was like, oh, right. I just like did it again. And like that honestly has probably been the biggest turning point for me in realizing that like it's still not about that. Like you don't have to choose that as your metric.
Right. Did you also have a bunch of people in your life that were so clearly not supporting you?
I wouldn't say a bunch, but I definitely like took stock of who I'm investing in, both friends and colleagues, and it really was like learning where to find validation, and that like to make sure that you're valuing people that will value you and want the best for you. Yeah. And I sort of joke with my husband that I've like created a 360-degree friendship circle now of like 6 or 7 people that I can go to for perspective on any number of things. And it's that I would say like learning to really lean on your friends and trust that they want the best for you, and that you don't have to meet a certain goal, look a certain way, achieve a certain anything to trust that they do actually just love you and want to help you has been a huge part of the experience as well.
Getting teary-eyed again. No, that's great. Do you still run?
I do. I run much less because I am very injury prone. So I do like 2 miles and then some mobility work and then, strength training. But fitness is still a really big part of my life.
Yeah, and did you join a runner's group?
Yeah, I joined North Brooklyn Runners when I was training for the marathon, and that was hugely helpful because when you're going on a run for like 3 or 4 hours training, it's hard to keep going. And so there was just always like someone new to chat about, like, well, how are you preparing your food that you like take with you and put in your pocket, and all the like stupid things you have to figure out when you're trying to run a marathon.
And was your very first time 1 block?
No, my very first time was 2 miles on a treadmill because I was too embarrassed to do it outside. I just like felt very out of place. And I actually was talking about that with Paul the other day, and he was laughing, thinking about a scene where like she like steps out and is like, 2 miles. It's like doesn't have the same effect as like 1 block.
Right, sure.
But
2 miles sounds huge to me, actually.
Yeah, totally. And it was awful. Like it still, whenever I do any running, the first 2 miles are the worst. And for some reason, like after that, maybe it's just because like endorphins kick in and you start to like feel a little better as you're going. But it was definitely not a pretty 2 miles, and it was not easy. But it, sort of eased me into understanding that like this can be a thing that I do.
And that you're able to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, even mentally, that is like huge. Now, I know, actually, by round of applause, I think there's some running groups here, people that run over there.
Hey.
Particularly, yes, hands in the air. What's the running group? Queens Woodside Runners. In this movie, she's running with it's in Queens, right?
Yeah, it's in Queens.
Yeah, that's you guys. But you said you were in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I was in Williamsburg.
You were in Williamsburg. Okay, so you have an injury, you have a setback. I mean, I think that's one of the things I particularly love about this movie that I know is based on your life, that I like that it's not just like, and then she does it. We root for Brittany, and then by proxy you, by watching her stop and start so many times and still ultimately get there, even if the route is, just not at all like, just a classic fable of beginning, middle, and end. It's much more, and that's true to your life.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's true to anyone's. Like, if you don't fail, if you're not continuing to fail, and if you let that discourage you, then we're never going to do anything. So I love that it's very true to like, this is what it's like when you try to do something for the first time or for the 10th time. Like, it's different always. There's always a new factor to take into account. There's always a new challenge to overcome. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Like, I like that it just is like, yeah, that's how it goes. And it's okay. Yeah. Still do it.
Yeah. And what was the actual first marathon like for you?
It's the first and only.
First and only.
It was incredible.
Yeah, okay.
I felt like a rock star the whole time because you're like, there's like 6 people deep screaming your name because I had my name right on my thing. I had gotten married a month earlier, and I was like, this marathon was the best day of my life, even though it was like right after my wedding. It just was like a party the whole time. And they always have, I think some are automated photos and some are like actual photographers, but when Paul was sending out the script, he wanted a photo to send out with it of like me struggling. And he was like, are there any of you at the marathon? And every single photo is me smiling because I just had the best time. And there are no marathon photos of me not like smiling and totally loving it. It was really crazy.
Just every step of the way.
Like,
that's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously you finished.
Yes.
Did you have this moment where you didn't think you were going to finish?
No, I mean, I have to be honest. I really trusted my training. I really was smart about it, and it worked. And I just like, I was relentless in my precision in training and prepping for it.
Yeah. Did you have the route in your bedroom that you stared at?
Did not.
Every
That
day?
I did not.
I like
But
that
I like
detail.
that touch. Yeah,
that was a very
nice.
good detail. And you said never again.
No, I can't. It's a miracle that I made it through once without injuring myself again. I would love to like do another feat that is challenging and impressive. Maybe it'll be a pull-up. I don't know, but like I can't do a marathon.
You mentioned just as we were talking about this, at the time you were working in theater, or that's what your idea was, and you've made this shift to be working in human rights. Is that at all have it to do with this journey?
A little. Well, I will definitely say that like I my lifestyle when I was working in theater definitely lent itself to like partying and you know, when a show opening is over, all that's out is like shitty food, and it just was like part of the deal.
Yeah.
But I think it was more like wanting. I wanted to. For me, at a certain point, my weight and running and how far I could run became a metric for like, am I capital G good as a person? And I just found a different metric, and now I'm like, I can say that I'm good now, right? Like I like raise money for refugees to resettle in New York. That's good, right? So just is sort of like yet another part of like, how can I grow and challenge myself and want more for myself? I guess yeah.
That is just who you are.
Yeah.
Were you on set for any of the filming of this movie?
A little bit. There's actually a small shot of me in one of her running clips, and I had a line and I got cut.
What?
So I stopped by just twice.
Okay, what scene did you have a line in? Or
At one point, so when you run the marathon, at the end of it, you still have to walk a mile to get out, which is so cruel. And it was like, and I was a marathon worker, and it was like I made a joke about that as the marathon worker.
Okay.
But it didn't fit the ending. It kind of ruined the inspirational feel of the end. So.
And what are you in that?
It's just one of the montages where she's running. It's less than a second. You see she's running. You see her from behind, and I'm just standing on a corner looking.
Right, because they recreated, obviously this is all fictional situation of a marathon for her to run through.
Well, that was the real marathon. They filmed at the New York City Marathon. You know that?
The actor.
She didn't run. So she ran enough to get shot running. But it was the actual marathon. This is the first time they've ever let a narrative film in to shoot during the marathon. They were like, do you want access to like our crane and our, I don't know, whatever equipment. They just like gave them full access.
They're like, no one's ever asked us, do you want it all? They're
Yeah,
like,
literally. Yeah. And at the end, so like when she's crossing and it's supposed to look like really hard, like all these amazing marathoners who had just run 26 miles would like come up to her and grab her arm and be like, yeah, we got this. And they were like, no, get out of the shot. Yeah. So they kept having to do it over because Jillian was like, I'm not going to tell them not to do this. They just ran this. I just been doing this like 20 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
That's amazing. All right. Yeah, we'd love to take a few questions from the audience. If anyone has a question here, you just throw up your hand and say the question, and I'll repeat it for the crowd to make sure everyone hears it. So, yes, right here. Yeah. Yeah. If they are. Okay, you would like to know about the secondary characters brilliantly played by these wonderful actors. The best friend, Karen, the running partner, Seth, Jern, the hilarious house sitter turned boyfriend.
Yeah, none of them are really dead on. I mean, Jaren is extremely loosely based on my husband, who I met while I was at that point in my life on this journey, because I think it's
how loosely.
Very.
Okay.
Yeah, very. And
he's waving.
Seth, honestly, is mostly Paul, the running friend, and little bits of him. But Catherine was just like. Totally made up. I mean, really, it was just like Paul really wanted like a little more depth there in helping pull out who Brittany is, and then also shedding light on like everyone has their own stuff. So yeah, mostly fictional.
Very good. Any other questions from the crowd? Yes, right here. I'll get to you next.
Yeah, I still do.
The question is about being blinded by your own journey because you're so dead set on a goal, basically.
Yeah, I still find it challenging, really, because it's hard to to know when you are needing to be disciplined enough to focus on your goals, and when you need to be able to sort of open your eyes a little bit and understand that that's not the only thing going on in the world. It definitely is something that I'm constantly reevaluating. Reading versions of the script early on, I was still very much in that, and it was a good way to point out to me that I was very self-involved in doing the journey. But, it's sort of like some things need their own incubation phase, and this did. And I think that I err on the side now of letting go so that I can be there to support and just see others in their journeys too.
Very good. There was one right over here. Yes. Okay. What advice do you have for people starting out on the journey to run a marathon or any journey of rediscovering self-worth? Get better. Mentally and physically. People want to start
That have setbacks.
because they are inspired. They have watched this. They are looking at you,
Yeah.
and they're like, "I'm turning my
here
life
for you.
around."
I'm ready for you. I'm here for you. No, that's part of it. That's what it is setbacks. That's not like a symptom or a sign that you're not succeeding. That actually is just the path of success. Is that? I know that like that's something that I went on a whole thing of like I should be a trainer and I should like be a nutritionist and so like there's definitely stuff there that like helping people through that journey is something I'm really passionate and excited about. But the main thing to know is just that like it is failure. Success is a lot of failures until it's not.
That is the exact thing I've thought about life all the time. Just keep failing, and at the end, you get this. That is all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Bridget O'Neill, and thank you to the 51st Fest for making this possible. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Thanks.